Okay, let's get into this. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a really unique set of sources. We're pulling from a technical astrological reading and also a narrative piece, a StoryScope.
Mhm.
And both are focused on one single day, January 6th, 2026.
They're great structure. It gives us the cosmic blueprint, the planetary movements, and then right alongside it, a human story showing how that energy could actually play out.
A kind of cause and effect.
Exactly. It's a shortcut to understanding.
So our mission today is really about alignment and accountability. And I think this surprisingly simple idea of choosing what chooses you back. We're looking for guidance on how you can slow down and invest your energy where it's actually going to give you a return.
Right. And the big theme, the real shift here, is moving away from that frantic chasing of meaning and instead finding it through discernment and accountability.
I think the hook, what makes this so useful, is the idea that life isn't supposed to be all work, all struggle. The energy of this day sort of forces an alignment between who you are and what you attract.
Yeah. And that's where the astrology comes in. The transits create these pressure points where clarity becomes unavoidable. You can't just run on hope anymore. You have to operate on real established value.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of the day. The sources point to a bit of a jolt first thing in the morning.
They do.
The Leo moon squaring Uranus. Can you break that down for us? What does that aspect actually mean? How would it feel?
Well, a square in astrology is always tension. It's a challenge. It demands you do something. You can't just coast.
Okay.
And here you have the moon in Leo, which is all about ego, self-expression, a bit of drama. And it's hitting that shock from Uranus, the planet of sudden change, disruption.
So if you're waking up on this day, you might feel a sudden spike of restlessness. Or like something just has to change right now.
It could be. Or even a literal interruption, a phone call that startles you, or just an emotional jolt that pulls you right out of your routine. The Course says the system responds with a quick, almost reactive adjustment.
High alert.
Very high alert. The emotional system is basically scanning for a fire to put out.
That sounds pretty exhausting for a morning. So how do you move out of that frantic state?
Well, the universe provides the answer almost immediately. The moon shifts into Virgo. And this is the perfect energetic remedy for that Leo-Uranus jolt.
How so?
We move from that broad, almost theatrical need for attention in Leo to the super detail-oriented focus of Virgo.
And what does that shift do to the nervous system?
It demands grounding. Virgo energy is all about the day-to-day, your health, your body, your routines. So when the moon moves there, your whole system feels this pull to organize things, to check things, to refine.
So you're not solving the big life questions.
No, not at all. You're controlling your immediate environment.
So the practical insight here is almost counterintuitive. When you feel that big frantic energy, you don't try to solve your life, you do something small.
Precisely right. And the Source explains why it works. These small, practical acts, like, say, caring for your body, scheduling a checkup, or even just eating a good meal.
Or your budget.
Or your budget, right. Reconciling a couple of accounts.
Yeah.
Or just organizing your desk. They act like anchors. They give you structure right where that morning transit brought chaos, and it calms the nerves by putting you back in control of the details.
So you move from this broad panic into focused, productive work.
Exactly. It's a high-leverage way to start the day. It's the difference between aspiration and immediate action. And that focus on value brings us right to the midday influence. This is really the cornerstone of the whole deep dive.
The main event, Sun conjunct Venus. This is where it gets really interesting. Your identity, your core self, the Sun, is fusing with what you value and what you attract, Venus.
And a conjunction means they're right on top of each other. It's a fusion. It's amplification. Your identity is perfectly aligned with what you appreciate.
And the sources say self-expression feels easier, creativity flows, which sounds wonderful, but is there a risk of it just feeling good without being productive? A kind of spiritual bypass.
That's a really important question. The Source puts it in context. This alignment isn't about ignoring problems. It's about setting a baseline for your own worth. It's a reminder that life isn't meant to be all labor.
Oh, yeah.
It's permission to just count your blessings for a minute, to celebrate what's already there.
So it recharges your battery by reminding you of your own value, which then makes you less tolerant of things that drain that battery.
That's it. And that's where the maturity comes in. The Source frames it perfectly. Affection meets accountability. When you feel that aligned, your patience for ambiguity, for vagueness, for effort that isn't returned, it drops to zero.
So midday becomes the time to set standards, professionally and personally. What kind of standards does the source suggest?
This is where you define the terms. You'll find you just have less tolerance for mixed signals, for vague promises. If you're looking at your finances, it's not enough to hope for growth. You need to see a plan.
And in a relationship.
It's not enough to just feel affection. You need to see clear behavior.
I like that it moves right to definition. It speaks to that deep desire to only invest energy where it's going to be reciprocated.
And that desire strengthens everything that's already solid. Alliances, collaborations, partnerships, they get forged or reinforced now. But they have to be based on mutual long-range goals. If a relationship can't handle a talk about timelines or resources, this is the day you realize it's just an emotional expense, not an investment.
Which brings up the critical question. How do you apply this to romance? Because romance often seems to thrive on a little bit of ambiguity, right? That exciting instability.
Well, the source suggests you strip romance down to its essentials, down to behavior, not mood.
Behavior, not mood.
Moods are fleeting. Behavior is evidence. It's about looking past the big dramatic declarations and focusing on the boring, reliable patterns.
And this is where the StoryScope narrative with Mara and Jonah comes in. It's a perfect illustration. They were held together by affection, but just completely undermined by ambiguity.
The chemistry was there. The structure was not.
So Mara internalizes this need for clarity from the transit, and she just watches his behavior. He shows up on time, he follows through, he remembers things they talked about.
She realizes he's already doing the work of a relationship, even if they haven't put a label on it.
And then she forces the clarity. She just sits down with him and says it. I don't want to guess anymore. I want to know what we are doing. And the source says this was a moment of relief for her, not tension.
And Jonah's response is the whole key. He's not defensive. He's not theatrical. He just says, plainly, me too. And then they talk about time, about money, about how their lives could overlap without, forcing it.
It changes the whole definition of romance. It's less like a movie scene and more like a business planning meeting.
In the best way, yes. For Mara, romance stopped being a mood and it became a pattern of behavior that created dependable warmth. The StoryScope leaves us with 3 behavioral metrics for any relationship. Who shows up? Who follows through? Who respects your time?
But I have to ask, for anyone listening who is used to that high drama, that stressful excitement that can feel like passion, doesn't this sound a little, well, dull? Is stability just boring?
That's the challenge of the day. The goal is to learn the difference between who adds stability and who adds stress that's just disguised as excitement. The reward isn't dullness. The reward is all the energy you get back when you're not managing constant confusion.
Warmth without confusion.
That is profound liberation.
That's a perfect transition. So, if clarity in relationships brings liberation, let's see how that clarity impacts her purpose, her work, as Mara goes into her afternoon.
She takes that feeling right into her professional life. She has this realization that creativity isn't something she has to force. It's permission.
Permission.
Permission to define the terms and then act inside those boundaries.
Yeah.
She realized meaning wasn't some late train she had to chase down.
Right.
It had been there all along, just waiting for alignment.
So that midday alignment gave her the structural integrity to finally move on a project that had been just hovering for months. Tell us about that afternoon meeting.
They weren't just talking big vision, which is very Leo energy. They were using that Virgo moon discipline and the Sun-Venus confidence. They talked timelines. They talked resource allocation, specific responsibilities.
Defining the KPIs.
Exactly. And crucially, they talked about profit, about sustainability.
And the detail that stands out is that they did it without discomfort. No fake enthusiasm, no exaggerating what they could deliver. They just stated what was required and what was possible.
It's applying accountability to ambition.
Yeah.
And that gives you the feeling of something truly solid, like a bridge you've actually walked on, not just imagined. It's the difference between an idea and a foundation that can actually hold weight.
So as the day ends, Mara does this final reflection that really synthesizes everything. She realizes that stability wasn't a cage, it was spacious. That is a huge shift in perspective.
It is monumental. She thinks about all the times that urgency, that self-imposed excitement, had pulled her into things that looked great, that shimmered, but just they couldn't support her weight.
Yeah.
The joy of the day was realizing the world wasn't demanding her confusion anymore.
And she counts her blessings not just as a list, but as a felt sense. The alignment of what she desires and what she values, the relief of clarity, the quiet joy of investing her energy and knowing it will be returned.
And that integration is the real takeaway. True fulfillment comes from foundational defined behavior in yourself, your work, your relationships, not from drama. You, the listener, have the power on this day to define your terms and set clear expectations everywhere.
So we went from that morning restlessness to a midday alignment. We found clarity on our standards, and we identified stability as a form of spaciousness, not boredom. You have permission to slow down and find meaning through discernment.
The sources really do provide a blueprint for making some very high leverage choices.
And as a final thought for you to explore, Mara wrote one last line in her notebook that sums this all up. She wrote, "I choose what chooses me back." So, what would it look like in your life right now to consciously choose only the energy, the people, and the projects that fully reciprocate your effort? And what will you finally let go of that doesn't?